recording now. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. If you're just hopping on here in a couple of minutes, you can post in the chat section. Just tell us hi and where you're from. And that way we'll get to know you a little bit. And I'll tell you who I am. The ladies who are on now know who I am, but other ladies may not. My name is Linda Karshner, and I help women discover simple, proactive steps to support their own and their families' physical, emotional, and financial wellness through natural solutions and inspired purpose. And one of the main ways that I do that is through doTERRA essential oils, which is kind of the connection that we all have on here. But it's more than that. And as I have been discovering some information about myself and my own health and wellness, I like to share that with people. And if anyone has taken the Clifton Strengths Finders assessment, then they'll know what I'm talking about. My top strength is learner, and my number 5 strength is input. So input is, or your number 5 strength is like where you lead from your heart. And so input for me means like getting all of the information that I have learned as a learner and trying to put it together in a way that is beneficial for other people. So that's why I'm here doing this about histamines, because I found out that I have a histamine excess is really what it is all about. But they call it a histamine intolerance. And so Amy is trying to get on, but it says it is not starting yet. So let me see if I can help Amy. And I'm just going to pause the recording while I do this. Okay, so I was chatting with my friend Dottie, and some of you who are from here in Berlin know her. Hey, Linda. You can put in the comment section where you're from. Tell us hi. So my friend Dottie realized a long time ago that she had candida, and also has realized that she has histamine excess. So I asked her, like, she's been working with this for quite a while. So she said she was just sick of being sick. So she is still learning about it. And I asked her, like, what would you tell people who, like myself, are just starting out? And she said, first of all, it really is a thing. So don't discount your symptoms. When I go through what some of the symptoms are, it's a thing. And histamine intolerance, histamine excess, they're finding out more and more all the time how significant the effects can be. So there are a lot of things, Dottie also said, that can have an impact on your symptoms. So we're going to talk about some of those tonight, especially the food that we eat. She also said the trick is to figure out what each person can tolerate. Some of the foods that are listed on the, avoid list, she thought she was okay with until she stopped eating them. And then she realized, and then started again, and she realized that it was a trigger for her. So for her, for example, bananas. And the other thing she said, and this was so good, this, and I want all of us to remember this, is we all need to remember we're all individuals and not textbook. We have to find out what works for us. So that's part of the reason why diagnosing, assessing, whatever you want to call it, histamine intolerance is tricky, because we are all individuals, and we you know, we have to find out for ourselves what works and doesn't work for us. So hi, Linda, I'm glad you hopped on, and you can post in the chat section there your name and where you're from, and just to let us know where you're coming in from. And I am going to share my screen now, see if I can do the technology. That is always so much fun. And I think I do Control L, hopefully to, I want to do the view and full screen. There we go. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. All right, so if the pictures, everybody's pictures are in your way, then you can like minimize or move around that little thing that is there, like that little image. So I guess, let's see, Danielle, can you unmute for a second and tell me if you see my slide that says Histamine Workshop with the girl who looks super frustrated? I want to make sure you guys can see my slides.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Wanda. Very good. Okay. So Histamine Workshop. This is a quick overview of what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to talk just a couple minutes about the history of histamines. How do I know if I have a histamine intolerance or excess histamines? What are histamines? What's the big deal about having too many of them? What can I do to help myself? And then we're going to do a wrap up at the end, and I'm going to just take a minute and give you an offer if you would like to take part in that offer. It's up to you. So welcome whoever hopped on, because I can't see who it is now because I am sharing my screen and that's all I see. So let's talk about the history of histamines. This molecule was discovered in 1910 by Sir Henry Hallett Dale, and that's his picture down in the corner. Hista is, I believe, Latin that means tissue. So it's an amine, that's the amine part of the word, and hista is from tissues. In the 1940s, the first nasal antihistamine was developed. In the 1970s, the first gastric antihistamine was developed, and that was Tagamet. And in the 1980s or 1990s, they really started to discover the impact of histamines on all areas of the body. So even now, we think about antihistamines in terms of nasal symptoms, you know, because we know about, you know, antihistamines for when you're sneezing or whatever. But this histamine is much more all-encompassing than that. So we're going to talk about that. My histamine story started long ago, but I did not know it. I had a few rashes, you know, dry skin, rashes on my fingers at different times. I had lots of stomach issues, which is why Digestion is one of my favorite doTERRA products. I have GERD, acid reflux, all that happy stuff. I had very abnormal menstrual cycles. They were regular, but super heavy bleeding and super, super painful. And I honestly am so thankful that I had a hysterectomy in 1998 and got all of that stuff out of me because it was horrible. My ankles swell a lot, which I always attributed to maybe eating, if I ate too much salt in a meal or just having a sedentary lifestyle. But I'm finding out that it is maybe a little more than that. Not that, you know, a sedentary lifestyle is good by any means. I have heart palpitations. Like I'll just be sitting And all of a sudden my heart will start beating kind of erratically, and talk to the doctor about it. And they're kind of like, yeah, you know, a lot of people have that and it's nothing to worry about. Well, little did I know that it's a symptom of an excess of histamines. And big capital letters, anxiety. And these aren't all of the symptoms, these are just mine. So I've dealt with anxiety for probably, the last 20 years or so. So it's not a fun thing. So we are just going to be able to touch the very tip of the iceberg tonight, but hopefully I can give you a good overview. And like I mentioned at the end, I'll be inviting you to a program where I go more in depth with how to support our bodies when we have histamine intolerance. How do I know if I have a histamine intolerance? It's hard to diagnose, and sometimes it looks like an allergy. But if you've been dealing with these kinds of vague, undiagnosable issues for a long time, finding out the answers will be everything for you. And we're going to talk more about some of the issues that are key symptoms. At this point, there's really no reliable lab test or procedure that can pinpoint histamines as the issue. The intolerance will not show up on an allergy test. However, if you are having allergic type reactions like rashes and sneezing and things like that, it is a very good idea to go ahead and have allergy testing done so that you can rule out any other triggers or underlying issues. So, how do I know if I have a histamine intolerance? And again, this is not a full list, but I tried to compile lists from several different sources to try and get as many as I could. Frequent headaches or migraines, insomnia, excessive itching, high or low blood pressure, or a sudden drop in blood pressure, dizziness and vertigo, and then the ones that we typically think of as anti-histamine necessary, sneezing, nasal congestion, heavy breathing, asthma attacks, abnormal menstrual cycles, abdominal cramps, fatigue, tissue swelling, bloating, diarrhea or constipation, brain fog, heart palpitations, and anxiety or panic attacks. And I am going to send everyone like the notes from this as well. I can email everyone just like a Word document with the notes, or you can take a screenshot if you want to. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, you can. I'll give you just a minute. So like I said, you know, for myself, I don't have all of these symptoms. I don't have headaches very often. Itching maybe once in a while, but usually, you know, it's something that I could explain, and it wasn't anything that was it what I would call excessive. Like some people with histamine intolerance, they just feel like they want to crawl out of their skin because they have so much itching. So if you want to, and you feel comfortable, and you would like to post in the chat section, if you have had any of these symptoms, you can feel free to do that. And at any time, ask questions. I'm going to also save the chat before I close out the whole event, and I can send that to people as well. So, you know, ask any questions, post your responses in the chat section if you want to, based on, you know, any of the slides that I put up. So let's talk about what are histamines. They're a biogenic amine that occurs in various degrees in many foods and throughout the body. They're a neurotransmitter. You can see that on the side there. And in the bottom left corner, they're involved in 23 different physiological functions. And that is just what they've discovered at this point. I have a feeling as time goes on, they will discover more. So histamines are kind of like a bouncer at a nightclub. If there's a problem, they rally the troops to get your body back into homeostasis. So how do they do that? The histamine sends signals to mast cells in your skin, lungs, nose, mouth, gut, and blood. The message is release histamines, which are stored in the mast cells. When the histamines leave the mast cells, they boost blood flow in the area of your body that the allergen or the stress affected. This causes inflammation. So we think of inflammation as being a bad thing. And I guess it's kind of like histamines in a way. You have to have some inflammation, because what inflammation does is that it lets other chemicals from your immune system step in to do repair work. Histamines then dock at special places called receptors in your body. So, you have to have histamines to trigger this response so that the inflammation can go to the area of stress and help your body to start doing the repair work that it needs to do. Welcome to whoever popped in. I can't see who everyone is right at the moment, but welcome. I hear a little doorbell ding. So what do histamines do? They play a role in a ton of different actions that all keep your organs functioning and body working healthily. Things like helping the smooth muscle tissue of the lungs, uterus, and stomach contract. That keeps your organs working. Dilating blood vessels, stimulating gastric acid secretion in the stomach, and accelerating your heart rate. But again, we don't want our body to do that too much. We don't want too much heart rate acceleration. We don't want too much gastric acid secretion. So when there's too much of the histamines, then we have too much of the other stuff as well. Histamine intolerance results from an imbalance of accumulated histamine and the inability for histamine processing. So it's kind of two different facets. If you can imagine that we all have a bucket in our bodies that's a histamine bucket, and when it fills up to a certain point, it can fill up to a certain point and you're fine. But if it's overfull and spilling over, that's when you start to have problems. So some of us accumulate too many histamines, so that fills up the bucket. Others of us have trouble processing histamines, so that fills up the bucket. Also, histamines are present in various degrees in many foods. In healthy people, dietary histamine can be rapidly detoxified and taken care of. There is an enzyme called diamine oxidase, DAO, that is the main enzyme for the metabolism of ingested histamine. Sometimes we have trouble processing the histamine because our DAO is not working properly. The ingestion of food, alcohol, or drugs that are histamine rich, that release histamine, or that block DAO may provoke diarrhea, headache, nasal congestion, runny nose, postnasal drip, sneezing, red eyes, itching of the nose or eyes, asthma, blood pressure problems, arrhythmia, hives, itchy skin, flushing, and other conditions. Symptoms can be reduced by a low histamine diet or be eliminated by antihistamines. And I put in parentheses there, use with caution, because anytime we're adding medication to our bodies, there are side effects that we may not want. However, because of the multifaceted nature of the symptoms, the existence of histamine intolerance has been underestimated. It's a huge percentage of the population. So probably everyone on this call has some degree of excess histamines. In patients in whom the above mentioned symptoms are triggered by the substances and who have a diagnosis of allergy or internal disorders, histamine intolerance should be considered as an underlying cause. So a lot of times when you just don't know what's wrong, doctors need to be looking at excess histamines. How can we define histamine intolerance? And some of this is repetitive, but it bears repeating because it's kind of new to most of us. It's a somewhat misunderstood form of food intolerance. It is incredibly common, but doctors around the world fail to acknowledge it in most cases. Many of its symptoms make no sense when connected together. When it comes to histamine, there is some bad news. It isn't exclusive to detrimental foods. So detrimental foods we think of as sugar, white flour, the polyunsaturated fats. So you see a picture there with spinach and a nice smoothie, green smoothie that has lots of spinach in it. Actually, spinach is not helpful. It's a high histamine type of food. So people who are trying to deal with histamine issues, if you can substitute kale instead of spinach, you're much better off, like especially for your smoothies. Many healthy foods contain histamines in abundance. Like I said, spinach, yogurt, tomatoes, and citrus fruits. Just a side note though, our citrus essential oils are made from the peel of their respective fruits. So you don't need to worry about that with your histamines. I haven't done a lot of research, but I'm thinking that cinnamon might be an issue though. The good news is that histamine tolerance is a cumulative intolerance. This means that you can eat small amounts of it and still feel okay. Some people can anyway, but when you pass a threshold, you will start to feel rough. So if you can, we're going to talk about the elimination diet in a little bit. And if you can do low histamine at least 2 meals a day, then that's a good start. So it's a very difficult diet to do full time. And the thing is, there's an imbalance in the digestive flora. The enzymes break down histamines and just don't do what they need to do. So what's the big deal about excess histamines? The symptoms that we mentioned can turn into long-term chronic inflammatory diseases. And it's probably hard to see this because I just copied it off of another slideshow, but you can see that dark oval in the middle. It says histamine. And then going out from it are things like neurotransmitter release, estrogen, mucus secretion, endothelial permeability, stimulation of nerve fibers, tachycardia, arrhythmia, vasodilation. And so then going out from that, those things affect bone marrow, leukocytes, gastrointestinal, uterus, respiratory tract, skin, cardiovascular, central nervous system. And then the rectangles on the outside are the things that we talked about already, that are what we see as the symptoms. So you can take a screenshot of that if you want, but like I said, I'm going to send you the notes. And you can post in the chat if you want to, if you've ever had any of these symptoms. We were talking about that earlier. Vertigo, headaches, nausea, like trouble sleeping, your circadian rhythm is off, mast cell secretion, diarrhea, stomachache, cramps, dysmenorrhea, which means terrible periods, which I can relate to, congestion, hives, flushing skin, itchy skin, arrhythmia, anaphylaxis, which is deadly. So I guess, you know, if you are having those kinds of symptoms, you need to call 911 right away. Hypertension. So, you know, those are all, again, symptoms, and they can be very, very serious. So what can I do to help myself? First of all, address the root cause. Second, the elimination diet. Third, supplements. And 4, of course, essential oils. So let's talk about the root cause. Many times, histamine intolerance, excess histamine comes from the gut. We know our gut is like so important for our health and well-being. If you have SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, if you have candida, leaky gut, gluten intolerance, if you have any of those allergy type responses, asthma, eczema, hay fever, hives, exposure to certain medications and environmental toxins like mold can be very, very detrimental and actually make your histamine intolerance worse. So how do we start dealing with some of these issues? The elimination diet. Okay, so this is just a small overview of how you do this. For 3 weeks, because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for histamines to clear out of the tissues in your bodies, you want to completely eliminate high histamine foods for 3 to 4 weeks. Then the next week, so let's say if you did it for 3 weeks, on the 4th week, you want to reintroduce one food from that list. If you have no reaction for a whole week of having that food, which you don't have to have it every day, but several times in that week, if you don't have any reaction, that's great. Then you can add another food from the elimination list. At any point, if you do have a reaction, you need to detox again. So that means spending another 3 to 4 weeks off of all the histamine-rich foods, and then add a different low histamine food back in. So if you had a reaction, like let's say to bananas, then you need to do the elimination diet again. I have not done any of this yet, so I am not speaking from personal experience, but if anyone else thinks it sounds horrible, I'm right there with you. So then when you're, you know, trying again, you don't add bananas back in. And it may be that at some point you will be able to eat bananas once in a while, but your body is still just trying to cope with all of the, you know, excessive histamines throughout the years. So don't try the food that you added back in that caused you issues. Try something different. Now, let's talk about food. I alluded to this, touched on this a little bit. High histamine foods, there are 3 factors: high histamine, histamine releasing foods, and DAO blocking foods. So again, DAO is the enzyme that helps us to process histamines. So we want the DAO to be working at full force so that it can process any histamines that are in our bodies. So high histamine foods, and I don't know how well you can see this, so I'll read it. And like I said, I will give you like a handout of this. Aged cheeses, including goat cheese, cured meats, bacon, salami, pepperoni, lunch meats, and hot dogs. Those are all cured meats. Dried fruits like dried apricots, prunes, dates, figs, raisins, fermented alcoholic beverages, especially wine, champagne, and beer, fermented foods, sauerkraut, vinegar, soy sauce, kefir, yogurt, kombucha. So You know, again, those are foods that we normally think of, like most of them, as being healthy. But for someone with high histamines, they need to eliminate those and gradually add them back to see if it's a trigger for them. Most citrus fruits, nuts, especially walnuts and cashews, peanuts, sour foods like sour cream, sour milk, buttermilk, sourdough bread, smoked fish, and certain species of fish, including mackerel, mahi-mahi, tuna, anchovies, and sardines. Also canned foods, especially canned meats, you want to avoid. Avocados and tomatoes, eggplants, spinach, and vinegar containing foods like pickles, mayonnaise, and olives. So those are all high histamine foods that you should eliminate during the elimination diet. Then there are histamine releasing foods. So that's like a trigger in your body that releases histamines. Alcohol, artificial preservatives and dyes, bananas, chocolate, cow's milk, nuts, papaya, pineapple, shellfish, strawberries, tomatoes, and wheat germ. So we just had a bumper crop of tomatoes, and I knew that I shouldn't be eating them, but I did. Like I had BLTs, so I had bacon, bread, and tomatoes and mayonnaise. So I got to work on that. So then the DAO blocking foods that block that enzyme that helps us to deal with our histamines: alcohol, black tea, energy drinks, green tea, and mate tea. So I'm bummed because I like tea. So what can I eat? There's our frustrated girl. She's back again. And there are lots of recipe books available for histamine, and you can probably find on Pinterest as well, low histamine recipes. So that will help. Cooked eggs. You want to make sure the white is cooked. Cooking oils like olive oil, coconut oil, dairy substitutes, coconut milk, rice milk, hemp milk, and almond milk is a little iffy when you're first starting out with the elimination diet because, of course, it's made from a nut. Fresh fruits like mango, pear, watermelon, apple, kiwi, cantaloupe, and grapes. Fresh vegetables you can eat, except again, not tomatoes, spinach, eggplant, avocado. Freshly caught fish, freshly cooked meat or poultry, gluten-free grains like rice, quinoa, corn, millet, amaranth, and teff. Herbal teas and leafy herbs are good for you to consume. One of the other things that I don't have in the in this, like where it says about freshly caught fish and meat or poultry, one of the things that you should try to avoid is eating leftovers that have been refrigerated, because it starts to develop some mold spores that aren't harmful to us, to the average person, but it's histamine triggering. So, you know, if you have leftovers, which again, I have not started doing this yet. If you have leftovers, if you could put them in the freezer and then heat them up the next day, then that's going to be better for you than having them in the refrigerator. So here are some low histamine diet tips. To eliminate histamine-rich foods and practice a lower histamine diet, cook all your own meals. That doesn't sound like fun. Eat foods that are as close to their original form as possible. Record everything you eat in a detailed daily food diary. Be sure to include the time of day you ate each food. Record the times and dates of any uncomfortable symptoms for comparison. Avoid junk food or anything highly processed. So that means if there are numerous ingredients and the food item is ready to eat, then it's probably not the best for us. But the other thing is, don't be too hard on yourself, because this diet is very restrictive, and don't plan on eating this diet for more than 4 weeks in a row. Eat only fresh foods that have been kept in a refrigerator or in a freezer. Talk to a dietitian or a nutritionist about getting all the nutrients you need while on this diet. Talk to your doctor about vitamin and mineral supplements. Consider a DAO enzyme supplement, as well as vitamin B6, C, copper, and zinc. And this is a book that was recommended to me by a friend of mine. And they said that it is very good, like a very good overall viewpoint, and it has some excellent recipes in it as well. It's called the 4-Phase Histamine Reset Plan by Dr. Becky Campbell. So what else can we do to help ourselves? Supplements. And you see, I put in the bottom there, consult a medical professional, because I am not a doctor and I don't even play one on TV. And so I'm like not even recommending dosages or anything like that. I'm just offering you some options of things that I am using myself and things that I have read about. So a DAO enzyme and nutritional supplement, it's often used to treat symptoms. It may have some benefits, but research has been limited on it at this point. So again, you want to contact a naturopathic doctor or your PCP. Quercetin is known for its antioxidant activity and radical scavenging. So, you know, it inhibits the free radicals in our body. It also has anti-allergic properties, as well as inhibition of histamine release. So that's quercetin. And apples actually have quercetin in them. Also for supplements, stinging nettle is a common herb in natural medicine, and it may also be a natural histamine. Bromelain is found in pineapples. So you can find it in a supplement form, but again, you want to talk to your naturopath about that, because pineapples are a high histamine food. And so you want to make sure that it is okay for a low histamine diet. Butterbur is a marsh plant that's part of the daisy family, and it might be effective in reducing the intensity and frequency of migraines and treating nasal allergies. And last but not least, of course, excuse me, are essential oils. We know what they are. They're natural substances extracted from plants. They benefit the plant, help it to survive, and of course, they can help us as well. Ways that essential oils can help our bodies, and ways that it's important for people with excess histamine to pay attention to: immune system support, cell regeneration, antioxidant, stress and frustration reduction. Sometimes people get the histamines, which means they get very stressed and irritated if their histamine is high. Mood and emotion support, digestive system support, pain relief, antibiotic, antimicrobial, and skin health. All of those can be a factor for people with excess histamines. So I have 6 essential oils here that I'm going to tell you about, and they will be pretty familiar to us. First of all, frankincense. It has great mast cell support, anti-inflammatory, immune, respiratory, stress, antimicrobial, eases muscle and joint stiffness. So, you know, it's the king of oils. And this one I'm so excited about, holy basil. And if anyone saw any of the convention information or heard anyone talk about it, we now have it in our lineup all the time. Tulsi holy basil. It has loads of mast cell supporting properties, great for stress relief, heart health, antimicrobial, antibiotic, antiviral. It has helped with asthma and respiratory, as well as fevers, anti-inflammatory properties, and helps with skin irritation. So a good reason to get Tulsi, holy basil. Eucalyptus, mast cell supporting, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antibiotic, antiseptic, respiratory health, eases cough, joint and muscle pain, and eases stress. Lavender, of course, the Swiss Army knife of oils. It does everything. Mast cells, stress and anxiety, helps with insomnia, which, you know, like we said, can be an issue. Supports the immune system and muscles and joints and all kinds of other things. Ginger root. It promotes mast cell stabilization. It contains antioxidants. It supports digestive health and helps to uplift your mood. And myrrh, might as well go along with frankincense. It has been shown to reduce inflammatory cytokine levels, supports mast cells in several ways, strong anti-inflammatory properties, pain relief, antimicrobial, dental, and gum health support. So according to one source, and I'll just say one source, and I'm not convinced about this, but they say that the safest option for those with histamine intolerance to use essential oils is inhalation, especially if you have sensitivities to different supplements. So just kind of keep that in mind. For some folks, ingesting essential oils might be a trigger for them. So you just have to work with your own body. So where can we go from here? There are free groups on Facebook. I'm in several of them. And just search histamine in the Facebook search bar. And you'll come up with a dozen or more histamine support groups. I actually found a couple of free Kindle ebooks, and I use the free Kindle app on my phone and on my computer. So I don't have a Kindle. You don't have to have a Kindle. They have a free app that you can download to whatever device you want to download. And if you search on Amazon or in the Kindle store for histamine, and then I usually do a filter by price, low to high. If it's $0, then you can download it for $0. Lots of reference and recipe books coming out more and more all the time. You can find them at the local library. You can find them on Amazon, like I mentioned earlier. And, you know, any place where you can buy books. So where else can we go from here? On October 28th, I'm going to be releasing a Go at Your Own Pace program to get you started on your histamine awareness journey. And it will review some of this, but it's also going to have printable checklists, how-to steps, essential oil recipes, and resources for more support. It's a value of $129. And the special price for anyone who's in this workshop is $24.99. Type program in the chat section or private message me so I can make sure to send you the link to register for this program when it is finalized. So just, you know, to reiterate, it's going to be a go at your own pace. It's not going to be a webinar like tonight. It's going to be where you log in and you get your information. You look at the like basically like a slide. You look at the information, you read it, you get a checklist, you do the checklist, things like that. And I will also be including, like I said, a handout, and all of these references are things that I found online. And so we are going to pass those on to everyone else. So, okay. Oh, okay. So Stephanie, they're not feeling well. All right. Yeah, you should be able to get the replay, Stephanie. So that's not a problem. Okay, does anyone have any questions? All right, Wanda, and I saw that you put program, so I'll make sure that I add you to the list. I was trying to talk really fast, so I had to keep taking drinks of water. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed putting all this information together, and I did see my naturopath today, and she said, you need to get on this, Linda, because you have lots of inflammation, and until I lose the inflammation, I won't be able to lose the weight. So that's the goal, to get rid of the inflammation. So I may have to start a support group for this low histamine diet to help me make it through that. So, all right, guys, I think that's it for tonight. And just private message me if you have any other questions, or think of something. And I think that's it. All right. Bye, guys. God bless. Have an oily night.